questions throughout it, go ahead and leave the questions in, you can type them in the question box, and we'll go over those at the end of the webinar. So what we're talking about today is the waiting list and how you guys can use it to increase your revenue. The idea behind increasing your revenue through using the waiting list is to schedule, to fill open slots from the waiting list. So if you have a slot today at like 4 p.m. that somebody canceled, you can use that waiting list to fill that slot, so that that's not just a downtime and you just missed out on a patient. You can also use the waiting list for a few days out or a week out to fill those open slots. It's all up to you and how you do it. So let's get into the actual waiting list. You can access the waiting list a couple of different ways. One of the ways is under File, Template, or Resource Scheduling, and then Waiting List. So we can see it here. And this is the waiting list that we have available for us. This just has some patients in our database. You can search for a patient. You can just type in and find them if you know who you're looking for. Or you can just look at this list as a whole. Depending on how busy your practice is, this list may get really large and may not. By default, this grid is sorted by whoever was added first to the list. So it's the oldest to the newest. So we can see here we have this Mr. Smith. He was added 2 days ago, 11:30 basically. And the newest one, this Robin Smith, was added just today, just a couple hours ago. The patient, as you can see here with this Robin Smith, can be on here multiple times if you want. So let's talk about how you can actually add patients to the list. The easiest way is to pull up the list like we've got and come over and click on Add, which is over on these buttons over here. As we come up here, we find the patients. We click on this little flashlight, find the patient, and we'll add this Adam Francis. That is the only thing that is required to add them to the list. The location, procedure, and notes are all optional. Okay. So once you add them to the list, we can see that they come here under the bottom. Okay. You can edit the waiting list, and you can add the location, procedure, and notes as you see fit. And those may be something that you want to add to the practice. An example of the notes is like this Valerie Johnson here. If we take a look at it, he has an appointment in September, but he would like to be seen ASAP. So this is one where we have a location, a procedure, and some notes in there. Okay. So the idea behind this is that we can call whoever we can call the people on the waiting list to fill those open slots. Over here, we can delete the patient off the list. The one problem with deleting the patient off the list is once you delete it, you can't run a report on it. So there are other reports out there that you can run to look at deleted payments or deleted charges. You can't run a report to look at the people who were deleted off the waiting list. So that's just one of the things that you're not going to be able to do. When we look at the right-click menu on one of these, like we'll look at this Robin Smith here, we can see we can add it to the favorites. So if you know that they want to be on the waiting list because they want to come in before their next appointment, you can add them to the favorite and just look in the favorites for that. You can delete them from the favorites list too. This attempt to contact an open patient, this is the key. So you have this open slot and you're going through and you're calling these people and you find that this Robin Smith didn't answer or didn't pick up or something. You can mark it as attempted to contact and it's going to count up here. So you could set this up essentially so if after 5 attempts and you haven't gotten to them or they have said no after 5 attempts, you could remove them from the list. Or you can make it as 15, or you can not even do that. That's all internal procedure at your practice. The other thing you can do from this list is you can open the patient. So you right-click and do Open Patient, and you're just in the patient's account now. You can go in and schedule an appointment if you want, or you can look at their past appointments or whatever. You're in the patient. That's one of the ways that you can open up that patient. Okay, so we're going to look at the scheduling screen. So we'll go into the schedule, and we'll get this set up here. Okay, so a couple things in here. This right-click, make an appointment, and then from the waiting list. Okay, so if you're on an open procedure, so this is an open slot that you want to fill. If you right-click and do from waiting list, that's going to open up the waiting list for you to view and make your calls. So if we open this up, we can say, all right, well, we're going to call this Gerard Smith. So we have his phone number there. We call. He doesn't answer. We can do attempted contact. When we do this Nellie Smith, we call because we have a phone number. If you needed another phone number, you can open the patient and get to that their phone number. They don't have one. But say you contact Nellie Smith and you want to do it. Well, you can either double click or you can click OK. Click OK, it's automatically going to fill this information in. We already have the Nellie Smith there, and once you click OK, you're good. Okay. Now this recall, that's just saying is that completing the recall that was already there. It has nothing really to do with the waiting list. This is something that is going to come up every time that you make an appointment through that waiting list. I wouldn't suggest you print it and mail it, because if they're coming in today or tomorrow, it probably won't get to them. But if the system is set up, you can email this to that patient. Okay. You can also just click cancel. So if you, from an open slot, go to add an appointment or make an appointment from the waiting list, you can add a patient to this waiting list from here, but it's not recommended, so I would suggest not to do it, because if we try it, you'll see what happens. It's going to try and make that appointment. So we can come in here and we see that it's just trying to make the appointment for Mr. Zoolander. If we cancel this, the appointment does not get made, but that Mr. Zoolander is now in that waiting list. So that's just one of the ways that you can add patients. So let's look at from here. If we right-click on somebody who already is scheduled, right? So not an open slot, you can still get to the waiting list and you can add patients. So if you're in the scheduling screen and you want to open up the waiting list, not just make an appointment, just open up the waiting list, we suggest that you open it up by right-clicking on a patient that has already been scheduled. So don't right-click and open from waiting list on an open slot. Because if you do that, it's going to assume that you're trying to make an appointment. If you just want to open the waiting list, do it from somebody that's already scheduled, and you can come on here and look at the waiting list. You can do everything you want to in the waiting list. You can delete patients. You can add patients. You can look at all your favorites and whatnot. Okay. So, let's see. The whole idea is that you want to, the whole idea here behind the waiting list is you have this list of patients that want to come in before they're scheduled or want to come in as soon as possible and don't have a schedule. You can fill your open slots that you have by using this waiting list to fill it. So you have these patients that are already ready to go. You just need to make some calls in order to get them scheduled. And it's up to you if you use this notes, if you use the location, that's completely up to you. All right, so So we've got this patient here. So let's schedule this patient from waiting list. We've got this patient here. If we look at this one, cancel that. If we look at this one, it says that he has an appointment in September, but would like to be seen as soon as possible. Okay, so we're going to say that he's ready to come in now, basically. We're going to click OK. We're going to make the appointment. We're going to email this to him, but he still has that appointment out in September that this waiting list is filling. The waiting list is taking care of the appointment by him coming in today and not coming in September. So if you have one like this where they have one that's scheduled and you're filling it before the scheduled date, you're going to have to manually go in and cancel that other appointment. So again, we can just come here, we can go to open patient, look at their appointments, and we can see, well, we'll say it's this one in February. And we have this cancel appointment rescheduled for earlier date waiting list. Okay, this is just one that we created so that we can run reports based off of how the waiting list is doing. Are you actually filling the appointments before the scheduled date with that waiting list? So if we do that, then it's canceled, and we don't have to worry about it. Okay. All right. So let's look at canceling. So let's see that this will come out. Okay. So we'll say that this patient canceled. We'll assume that that this is a future date. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say canceled, patient canceled. Okay. So yes, we want to cancel this. Now this comes up. This comes up saying, do you want to fill this slot from the waiting list? Okay. So you can say yes, and it opens up the waiting list, and then you can go through and make your calls saying that you contacted all of these people until you find somebody like this Michael Anderson who says, yeah, I want to come in. And you click OK. Now what's happened is this recall is for the patient that you canceled, that was canceled. So you can set up a recall for the patient like you normally would, or you can click no. And now we've got this Michael Anderson on here. I don't know who it was before. But we've got this Michael Anderson on here from that waiting list. So if you're using the waiting list and you go to cancel an appointment, it's going to allow you to open up the waiting list to reschedule a new client for that time. So you're not left with another open slot. So you can do everything right then and there. All right, that is just about everything with the waiting list. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, then if that's the case, we'll go ahead and just end this. Support is available if you have any specific questions or you want to talk to someone about the waiting list. Call support. They can answer any of your questions with it. They can help you get it set up. Some practices, when they set it up, they'll copy their live database to their training database. And it causes some double work for a time, but they'll test the waiting list in the training database to see how it actually is working and if it's going to work out for your practice. If you want to do that, just call support and we can take care of that. If there's nothing else, then I hope everybody has a great day, and I hope this helped.